I accidentally joined a cult thinking it was a yoga retreat. So yeah, today I fed up by accidentally joining a cult. Kinda. Maybe. I'm still trying to figure that out. Okay, rewind to about a month ago. I was in a rough spot, just got out of a messy breakup, he dumped me over text, who does that, work was a nightmare, and I hadn't slept properly in weeks. I felt like I was vibrating with anxiety and heartbreak. A friend casually mentioned that getting out of the city might help, and like an idiot, I took that idea and sprinted with it. I googled relaxing yoga retreats near me, clicked through a few links, and found this gorgeous website advertising a digital detox and spiritual realignment experience. It had all the buzzwords I needed to hear. Yoga, meditation, nature immersion, vegan meals, deep healing. 5 days, all-inclusive, for only $600. Honestly, it seemed like a steal. The place was called the Garden of the Inner Way, which, yeah, sounds a little suspect in hindsight, but at the time I was too emotionally fried to care. I booked it on impulse. Didn't even read the fine print. Just paid, packed my comfiest leggings and incense, and told myself this was the start of my healing era. The retreat was deep in the woods, like, GPS signal disappears and your Uber driver gets nervous kind of deep. When I finally arrived, there was no cell reception, no Wi-Fi, and definitely no turning back. A barefoot dude in linen pants welcomed me with a hug that lasted way too long and said, "Welcome, sister. We've been waiting for you." I thought he was just being hippie dramatic. I had no idea how weird it was about to get. So, I've arrived. I'm in the middle of nowhere, hugged by a strange man who smells like patchouli and disappointment, and I'm trying not to panic because this is supposed to be good for me. The place itself was weirdly beautiful. Imagine summer camp vibes mixed with an influencer's Pinterest board. There were little cabins shaped like domes, hammocks everywhere, wind chimes in every tree, and this constant smell of sage in the air. It looked like heaven if heaven was sponsored by Etsy. "They took my phone at check-in for your digital unburdening," said another woman in flowing robes. I hesitated, but she gave me the kind of smile that made it seem like saying no would offend the spirits of the forest or something. I handed it over, said goodbye to civilization, and was led to my dome, which they called a womb space. Yeah. Inside my womb, there was a mattress on the floor, a woven blanket, a single candle, and a hand-carved wooden spoon on a string labeled for intention stirring. I didn't even ask. That first evening, we gathered at the Heart Circle, which was basically a fire pit surrounded by logs. Everyone wore earth tones, and I quickly realized I was the only one not dressed like a woodland druid. There were about 15 of us, mostly women, a few very quiet guys, and one older woman they called Mother Joe. Mother Joe was like the high priestess of the whole thing. She spoke in slow, sing-songy sentences and used phrases like energetic shedding and ego composting. I was trying to stay open-minded, so I nodded along, even though my inner New Yorker was screaming. Then came the naming ritual. Apparently, to begin our journey, we had to let go of our birth names and choose something that resonated with our soul vibration. People were choosing names like River, Stardust, Cricket, and Moonbone. I'm not even joking. When it got to me, I panicked and said spoon. Because of the spoon on the string. It was the first thing I saw. No one laughed. They all just nodded deeply and said, "Welcome, Spoon." So now I'm Spoon. Stuck in the woods. No phone. No Wi-Fi. No coffee. And I'm starting to think this might not be just a yoga retreat. Alright, so now I'm Spoon, my phone is in a wooden lockbox, and I've been adopted into a community of people who think deodorant blocks your energy flow. Night 1 wasn't too bad, honestly. We sat around the fire, sang some weird drony songs that all sounded like Enya got lost in a forest, and drank this earthy tea that tasted like wet bark and sadness. Someone said it would open the third eye, but all it opened for me was the desire to violently brush my teeth. Day 2, things took a turn. We woke up at sunrise, literally woken up by someone ringing a bell and yelling time to rise, sweet seeds. I wish I was joking. I stumbled out of my womb pod, bleary-eyed, to find everyone already in a circle doing sun salutations barefoot on the dew-covered grass. Fine. Whatever. I came for yoga, so I tried to play along. Except it wasn't normal yoga. First we had to greet the earth by pressing our foreheads to the soil and whispering what we were ready to release. Someone next to me said attachment to Western paradigms. I said Greg. My ex. After that, we were led to the small clearing where they'd set up what looked like an obstacle course made entirely out of sticks and feathers. Mother Joe explained we were going to do the path of unbinding. The rules were simple: go barefoot, blindfolded, and let your inner self guide you. At this point, I was like, okay. This is officially out of yoga territory and into live-action spiritual performance art. But everyone else was acting like this was totally normal. One woman actually cried before it started, saying she'd waited so long to be ready. I didn't want to be the only one backing out, so I tied on the blindfold, stepped onto the path, and immediately walked shin-first into a log. 10 minutes later, I was crawling on all fours, whispering ouch, ow, what the hell, while someone banged a drum nearby and shouted things like you are the wind. Eventually, I gave up and just laid in the grass until someone gently tapped my shoulder and said, Spoon, you've arrived. Arrived where? No clue. But apparently, I had completed the path and was now eligible for something called the sacrificial fast. Yeah. That part was less funny. So yeah, the sacrificial fast. After the whole blindfolded obstacle course fiasco, I still have a bruise on my shin that looks like the state of Delaware. Mother Joe pulled me aside and told me I had opened a portal of readiness. That's apparently cult speak for, you're about to do something really dumb but we're gonna make it sound profound. She handed me a scroll. A literal scroll. Unrolling it revealed a list of earthly attachments I was to surrender in order to achieve what they called the inner shedding. Some of the items included mirrors, shoes, words, time, and right at the bottom, sacrifice an item that binds you to your past life. I asked if this meant something symbolic, like journaling about an ex or deleting old emails. One of the robe dudes, I think his name was Breeze, smiled gently and said, no, like, a real thing. A material possession. The heavier the bond, the deeper the freedom. Okay, Breeze. Still trying to keep my cool and not scream, I asked if people usually gave up like, clothes? Jewelry? One girl said she'd burned her favorite childhood teddy bear in last month's fast and it helped her dissolve her ego. Then someone said, last season, a guest sacrificed her iPhone. And that got everyone's attention. Mother Joe turned to me, eyes all twinkly and intense, and said, Spoon, your soul is ripe for severance. Your pain clings to that device. Do you feel brave enough to let it go? Now, listen. I'm not one of those people who's surgically attached to my phone. But I had photos, notes, voice memos, like 5 half-written therapy rants and a really good grocery list I never got to use. And they wanted me to just smash it? I tried to protest, but by then, people had started chanting. I wish I was exaggerating. A slow build of shed like they were summoning a molting snake demon. I froze. And before I could think too hard about it, someone handed me a wooden mallet and placed my phone on a flat rock. Everyone watched. An ice spoon, seeker of peace and very dumb decisions, brought that mallet down and shattered my iPhone into glittering, pixelated dust. It felt like dropping a baby. I immediately regretted everything. And the worst part? They all cheered. So now I'm phoneless, shoeless, and apparently nameless, R.I.P. Emily, Lonely Spoon, and I've officially crossed into what I can only describe as the how did I get here stage of bad decisions. After the great iPhone sacrifice, Mother Joe gave me this long hug like I just passed some sacred trial. She whispered, you've unburdened. The next step will come to you. Which sounds ominous even without the background chanting. That night we had the evening cleanse. I thought it was going to be a group meditation or maybe some deep breathing. Nope. It was 12 of us in a circle howling at the moon while holding hands, smearing clay on our faces, and making eye contact for way too long. I was so deep into it by then I just did it. Like, full howl. I don't even know who I am anymore. Afterward, we sat in silence for 20 minutes while someone with a tambourine walked around ringing bells next to our ears to shake loose our hidden truths. One guy started crying. Another woman just whispered, "I remember," and wandered off into the woods. No one stopped her. Everyone acted like that was normal. At this point, I was starting to get legit freaked out. Like, sure, I came here for peace and maybe to cry into a smoothie bowl, but this was full-on weird. No phones, no clocks, no mirrors, they'd removed all reflective surfaces, and absolutely no outside contact. That night in my dome, I tried to journal, but the pen they'd given me was filled with non-toxic moon ink, which is apparently made from crushed blueberries and vibes, because it faded the second it dried. I didn't sleep well. Not because I wasn't tired, but because at 3 a.m., someone came by ringing a copper bowl and whispering, "Wake up, your shadow self stirs." Excuse me? I stayed in my sleeping bag like a terrified woodland burrito and just prayed it wasn't Breeze. By morning, I was determined to find a way out. But the problem was I didn't even know where out was. I had no phone. No GPS. And the trail we'd come in on was behind a gate that now had a rope across it with a sign that read, "The path opens when the self is ready." Cool. That's not creepy at all. All right. At this point, my inner spoon was rapidly turning into a spork, still soft, but ready to stab if necessary. I needed out. I had no phone, no map, no clue where the nearest road even was. I tried asking Breeze, yes, he's still floating around like a friendly haunted scarecrow, if there was a shortcut to town, and he smiled dreamily and said, "There are no shortcuts in awakening." Okay. Thanks for nothing, Breeze. So I went rogue. After the morning sun breath ritual, picture 30 people pretending to inhale sunlight while crying softly into the wind, I snuck away during breakfast. The only food they had was some kind of fermented root porridge that tasted like depression, so I didn't feel bad ditching it. I wandered toward the forest edge where I remembered arriving a few days ago. But instead of a driveway or trailhead, I found another dome. I'd never seen it before. It was smaller, hidden behind tall brush, and unlike the others, it had no colorful prayer flags or crystals dangling from the roof. Just plain, quiet, and kind of humming. The door wasn't locked. Inside was a single wooden chair, a dusty desk, and a bunch of old journals stacked haphazardly in a corner. Each one was labeled with a name and a date. One said Cedar, September 2022. Another said Nova, January 2023. And then I found one that said Spoon, reserved. Yeah. That's when I freaked out. How did they already have a journal with my cult name? I picked Spoon as a dumb panic joke 2 days ago. Did someone guess it? Or, was I meant to pick it? I flipped through the others. They were filled with strange entries, half poetry, half madness. Things like, "They don't let you leave until you see your reflection in the fire." I pretended to forget my real name. It helped. If you're reading this, try the north tree line. It splits near the flat stone. Suddenly, the door creaked behind me. Mother Joe was standing there. Smiling. Holding a bowl of that damn root porridge. "I thought I might find you here," she said. "This part of the path often draws those who are ready." I muttered something about just getting some air, tucked the Spoon, reserved journal under my hoodie, and shuffled out like I hadn't just discovered my soul was apparently on backorder. Now I was scared and starving. And the creepiest part? I think they knew I was planning to run. I didn't sleep that night. Every noise outside my dome made me flinch, rustling leaves, snapping twigs, someone softly humming what I now recognized as the harvest tone from the evening cleanse. Yes, that's a thing here now. I had the Spoon, reserved journal tucked under my sleeping bag like it was a life preserver. I'd read it cover to cover at least 3 times and kept finding new, unhinged bits each pass. The real Spoon didn't make it. They don't tell you that part. If you hear the copper bowl 3 times, it's not a dream. The rope gate isn't locked. It's watched. So yeah. Panic mode activated. The next morning, I faked food poisoning. Which honestly didn't take much acting, because eating fermented root porridge for 4 days will mess up anyone's insides. I told Breeze, ugh, that I needed to detox alone. He nodded solemnly and handed me a jar of moon-charged eucalyptus water. While everyone else was off doing spirit weaving, basically tying sticks together while crying, I packed a makeshift escape kit. My leftover porridge in a leaf-wrapped bundle. The journal. A blanket. One sandal I found under someone's dome, I don't feel bad. A stick I labeled emotional support branch. I headed toward the north tree line, just like the journal entry said. I kept low, quiet, avoiding the main paths. That's when I saw it. The flat stone. Behind it, a faint trail overgrown, but there. It looked barely used, almost hidden on purpose. I followed it for what felt like forever, heart pounding, branches smacking me in the face, bugs up my nose, until finally I saw it. The rope gate. Only this time, there was no sign. No chanting. No linen-draped cult leaders waiting to hug me into submission. Just forest. I hesitated. What if I was wrong? What if this led me deeper in? Then I heard the copper bowl. Once. Twice. 3 times. I ran. I didn't look back. Not when I tripped over a root, not when my emotional support branch snapped in half, not even when I swore I heard someone call out spoon in the trees. I ran until the trees thinned, the ground turned to gravel, and, hallelujah, I saw a road. And a gas station. I burst through the door looking like a feral goblin and begged the cashier to let me use his phone. So yeah. I escaped. Barefoot, sweaty, emotionally fried, and carrying nothing but a suspicious journal and a half-eaten root lump, I showed up at a gas station like a cracked-out forest cryptid. The poor cashier, shout out to Jay, my forever hero, didn't even blink. Just handed me a phone, some Gatorade, and a look like, "You good, girl?" I called my sister. She thought I'd gone off the grid to find myself and was low-key mad I hadn't sent her Instagram updates. I explained I joined what was either a cult or the world's weirdest improv troupe. She drove 3 hours to come get me. I showered at her place for almost 2 hours and still couldn't get the smell of sage and regret out of my clothes. I threw out the blanket, the porridge, and the emotional support branch. But I kept the journal. That's where things get even weirder. A few days later, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Just a single page inside with a pressed leaf and 4 words handwritten in neat script. Spoon, the gate remains. I wish I was kidding. Since then, I've had 3 friend requests from people with names like Cricket Soulfire and Rootbeam Awakened. My inbox is weirdly full of Gmail invites to virtual vibrational check-ins. I blocked them all. But sometimes, late at night, I'll swear I hear the faint sound of a copper bowl being struck. Ding. 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 Anyway, I've joined a regular gym now. No spirit weaving, no chance, and the only thing I've sacrificed is carbs.